so much. So yeah, I'm Annabelle Higgins. I'm a young survivor, and I'm going to be telling my story and how I think my story is a work of art. So I don't know when it was that I started creating, but it was purely on instinct, off of a deep, powerful internal desire to put something out into the world that was my own. When I was young, there was clearly something off about me. Toddlers tend to put anything they can into their mouths, but my parents never had that problem with me. Really, it was as much as they could do to get food into me in the first place, and the amount they managed just wasn't enough. So I was weak, I had a poor immune system, and I wasn't growing. This, of course, meant that I knew my local hospital much better than the average child, because I was constantly going in and out of it. It was a cycle. I was well, I felt sick, something was wrong, and I was carted off to the ward. I was given an NG tube through which I was fed at all hours of the day, when I was probably 4 years old, I think, sleeping with a wedge under my body at night to prevent me from being sick while receiving further nutrition, in vain, unfortunately. At 5 years old, I was struggling to reach 10 kilos. I would reach my goal, then promptly bounce back to 9. Still, I had one thing through it all. I was an artist. I couldn't take advantage of the world around me, so I created my own worlds out of paper and pencils, paints and canvases, drawing characters from my favorite cartoons and illustrating my favorite stories. For Christmas, family members would buy me kits and canvases and an easel, as you can see. And I did many other things too. I was a voracious reader and a figure skater, despite my underdeveloped muscles. Eventually, my local hospital decided there was nothing more they could do for me, and I was transferred to a London hospital, where I continued creating, drawing from my hospital bed and piling up sheets of sketches next to me. After more head-scratching and a lovely bout of norovirus, I at last ended up in Great Ormond Street Hospital, where I stayed in Mildred Creek Ward for 5 weeks, a children's psychiatric ward dedicated to helping young people with eating disorders, because that's what it was believed I had. It was one of a range of different diagnoses. I was 6, a year too young for admission to that ward, but I was made an exception to the rule. After going through my extensive medical records, a GOSH pediatrician found that despite claims that all tests had been done on me, I'd never had an MRI scan. One scan later, and a brain tumor was discovered, a pilocytic astrocytoma. Within a week, I had my first brain surgery, in which 98% of my tumor was removed. My mum told me later on that one of the first things I'd said after waking up was something along the lines of, "Can I have a pencil and some paper? I want to draw." This was all in 2012, and in 2015, due to my tumor growing back, I had a second surgery, which unfortunately accomplished, well, nothing. My tumor had grown onto my brainstem, and it couldn't be removed safely surgically. Thus, my parents and I went on a radiation vacation to Oklahoma City in the USA for proton therapy. We had 1 week before treatment started, and so we took a short trip to Hollywood and then Disneyland Anaheim. A lot of fun. During treatment, I discovered an ice rink near my hotel, where I quickly became a favorite, and I was invited to participate in the next skating gala. I illustrated the program, I sang the national anthem at the beginning, and I skated my new routine, choreographed at that rink to my own voice, singing "When You Believe" from The Prince of Egypt. I was even on local TV. This all happened just a few months after my second surgery. And it's wonderfully ironic, since some of the first words I said after that one were, "Mummy, when am I going skating again?" This is a drawing that I sold in the treatment center's art exhibition, and here's me ringing the end of treatment bell. After I returned from America, I had an MRI scan. At last, with the scan clear, I was medically cured. This meant, however, that I was suddenly plunged into a new kind of life, one that I'd never really known before. A life that most people would call normal. Having grown up tethered to the hospital, suddenly going there for only 1 scan a year, as I do now, seemed otherworldly. I enjoyed my newfound freedom, however, and I kept creating. My return was full of exciting things. For one, I made a lot of progress with my art, and I was interviewed by my local news about my story. One of the things I said in the interview was that I wanted to forget about it all and move forward. However, it's hard to forget about something that has been such a big part of your life for so long. I was left with a considerable sense of discomfort in medical settings and a deep-seated needle phobia that still causes me problems to this day. I tried to avoid thinking about everything that had happened, but then something came along to change that. Dr. Spadeus, who's looked after me for years, invited me to be a part of success. I gladly accepted and thus began a new chapter in my life. I began to reflect on everything that had happened to me, and I realized that sharing our stories, my story, might not only help me, but countless others going through similar things. So I became editor of Success's Bravehearts magazine, which is dedicated to sharing patient stories and advice for young survivors. The credit for that inimitable name goes to Millie Previero. These stories and articles present our experiences as Bravehearts, as being more than patients, while acknowledging our brain tumor backgrounds as a part of who we are. A chapter of the greater book we all write every day. Nowadays, I'm a jack of all trades, or a Jill of all arts. I've continued drawing and painting, specializing in portraiture, and I also dabble in other things. Still life, murals, ceramic painting, wood painting, and even Russian dolls. In 2020, during lockdown, I began doing Zoom theatre with a company called The Show Must Go Online, before moving on to working with a director friend to produce my own plays and short films, one of which was nominated for a festival, very exciting. Last year, I directed a production of William Shakespeare's King John with my best friend. Together, we started our own little company, Wide and Universal Theatre. I've since been invited to submit a paper to my first academic conference, written a play featuring a protagonist with my medical story, started a podcast, and I'm currently preparing for my A-level exams, which will, hopefully, take me to my dream university. I still skate, of course. This was me in 2013, a year after my first surgery. The middle one is me in America, and this is me, the figure skater I am today. In America, I was given a fun activity to do outside of proton therapy. I would string beads together to form these necklaces, and they were called beads of courage. My necklaces have turned my story, something full of pain and joy and suspense and hope, into a work of art. I've realized that not only are each of my individual creations art in their own right, but I, in all my complexity, no matter how technically correct or aesthetically perfect, have been sketched and painted and molded by my experiences into the person I am today and the story I tell. In the same way, every individual success we have is a work of art that we create, special moments in time and a culmination of our bravery, strength, hard work, and faith. All those moments where you felt proud of yourself are successes, whether that was defeating a brain tumor or something totally unrelated, like a good grade or just making a new friend. To me, success means creativity out of difficulty, because in the end, we are all successes. We are all works of art. Thank you.